Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching Channels Television, celebrating 21 years of professional broadcasting. This is the news at 10, a reminder of our major stories tonight. Members of the Niger Delta Avengers seek the inclusion of elder statesman Edwin Clark and representatives of multinationals operating in the country in any dialogue with the federal government. The National Human Rights Commission asked security operatives to respect the rights of Nigerians in the course of discharging their responsibilities. The federal government partially reopens the Apapa-Ijora bridge in Lagos to light traffic after emergency repairs on the bridge. And Turkey's president says suicide attack that left 51 people dead in Turkey was carried out by a teenager. Just a reminder here that all our top stories can be found on our websites, channelstv.com and on youtube.com/channelsweb. Well, do visit m.channelstv.com to view us live on a mobile device. You can also download the Channels TV app for Android, iOS and Windows phones from their respective stores. Besides the news and updates, the Channels TV app has an eyewitness feature. We do encourage you to use it to share those pictures, videos or news of happenings around you. Just install the app, then tap and swipe to reveal the eyewitness menu and follow the instructions. Motorists who work in and around Apapa axis can now use the Apapa-Ijora bridge, which had earlier been closed for rehabilitation. After initial worries about the failing concrete deck of some parts of the bridge, the Minister of Works, Mr. Apapa-Ijora, says there's been reinforcement work done capable of supporting light vehicular traffic.
It was danger waiting to happen and would have in its wake been very colossal. The reasons were not far-fetched. For many years, this bridge has been subjected daily to heavy axle load of container-bearing trucks and petroleum product tankers. This 40-year-old bridge remained for a very long time the only major entry and exit from Apapa. Soon, the consequences became very evident. After concerns were raised about the deplorable state, the federal government, through the Minister of Power, Works and Housing, Mr. Babatunde Fashola, on the 8th of August, took a tough decision to shut it down for emergency rehabilitation work.
Whatever our inconvenience is, I think that if we are inconvenienced, we still have life. I don't want us to come back here to come and recover any dead bodies.
Although many have thought that by this decision and the time lapse for the rehabilitation, motorists will have to wait for a long time, bearing in mind that funding may be a challenge. Interestingly, it wasn't a wait forever.
Yeah, before it used to be a nightmare, but it's a good thing right now that they are doing it. And as you can see that they created a diversion here. And we have been using this. I'm also surprised that I just came, they've started allowing cars to take the main bridge, and that's very, very good.
The road, I never even thought I would fly this route. I thought I would be going through the other side of, under the bridge to connect to a boundary, and then towards Ajegunle. From there I will go home. All to my surprise, someone standing there asked me to move on, the road is free. Then I started moving on. For the past 1 month, I've not applied taking this route, all because the road had been under rehabilitation. Or even before then, the road had been not usable. But at the moment, I can see it in front of me is very, very excellent.
Just as stipulated, the Apapa-Ijora bridge that was closed down some days back for rehabilitation has been reopened for traffic. But if you look behind me, you will see that there's a new development, and that's that barrier gantry that has been set up to prevent heavy-duty vehicles from going on the bridge. We can also tell you that the failed concrete deck portion of the bridge has also been effectively covered up, making it usable and motorable again. From Lagos, Olu Phillips, Channels Television News.
Before oil was discovered in Nigeria, the nation's export sector thrived significantly. But all that changed the moment oil was discovered, with Nigeria now heavily dependent on imported goods. With dwindling revenue, however, many say the time to revive the export sector is now. Our next report takes a look at the country's export potentials.
Exports are bulk of goods produced in a country but not domestically consumed by such countries. Exports from Nigeria to other countries of the world are very lucrative and, if well harnessed, can build the country's foreign reserves. There are thousands of exportable homegrown goods that yield more foreign exchange to the country than oil-related products. Some of these products include ginger, palm kernel oil, textiles and garment, cocoa butter, rubber, sesame seed, honey and cotton.
Nigeria has to produce more for us to export more. So this is the drive. And when we get our women doing our cashew, doing our shea butter, then we process them, package them for export. That is the goal. That is what we're trying to achieve. And now we're doing it with the private sector, with the banks. So financing is going to be, because when you look at the problems they have, number one major problem is access to finance. It's access to finance at double-digit interest rate. It's really not worthwhile for anybody to do manufacturing and industry in Nigeria.
Before the discovery of crude oil, Nigeria relied basically on agricultural products as its exports to grow its economy. But with the advent of petroleum, Nigeria became dependent on oil, setting aside all other revenue-generating goods. Although the oil and gas sector accounts for about 35% of the country's gross domestic product, crude oil revenue represents over 90% of total exports revenue. Experts, however, believe that the government needs to do a lot more to encourage more Nigerians to partake in exports in order to reduce the burden on the nation's currency, which has come under immense pressure due to a drastic drop in the price of crude oil.
Let's take this further now. Joining me on the news at 10 to discuss Nigeria's export potential is our in-house data and information analyst, Babajide Ogunsowo. Thank you so much for joining us on the news at 10. Well, we just saw the report there about, export potentials that we have. We have so much, to give. But right now we're talking about diversification of the economy, because we seem to be exporting more oil than we are exporting anything else in the country. So what areas do we have competitive advantage, or what areas are we lagging behind?
The question of competitive advantage is a big one, but there's one question that today that we need to ask, and the answer to that question will really tell us if we have a competitive advantage. What is that question? And I would share that question with you, and also I'll reveal that answer to the question to you in some minutes. But can we have a discussion about questions without even talking about and looking at that place that has provided the answers to some of the strangest questions that mankind has ever thought of? And that's the university. You have in Nigeria 130,000 students, young Nigerians, that go through our universities every year. But here's what the global rankings of our university today is. And listen to what they say. They say that South Africa is among that list of 1,000 universities. So South Africa currently, in the world ranking of all universities, has 5 universities. And we know at the moment South Africa is the largest economy in Africa. That list also says Egypt, which is the 3rd largest economy in Africa, has 4 universities in the world's top 1,000. In that list, it says Nigeria, which is Africa's 2nd largest economy, has no university in the world's top 1,000 university list. Here's what it means. It means it is extremely tough for us as a country in the short to medium term to export knowledge. But if we can't export knowledge, we have 2 other alternatives. The first is we can export things that will assist us to get out of these domestic problems we are in. But is that the way to go? Or should we go with the second option, which is to export global solutions, to export solutions that will assist us to compete better on the global stage? And I'll give you two instances of companies that are competing based on global solutions and not necessarily domestic solutions. Let's look at the case of Apple and Google. Just last year, Google made a profit of 5.7 trillion naira. This was just on exporting knowledge for the global world. 5.7 trillion naira that Google earned as profit last year is even much more money than the federal government of Nigeria earned last year. Apple, just last year as well, made a revenue, which is their turnover, of 81 trillion naira only last year. That is more money than the federal government of Nigeria has spent combined together since 1960. That is what Apple made as its revenue from selling its products and gadgets, which are knowledge-driven, last year. What do we need to do today to get ourselves to export more? Is for us to just look at move away from trying to solve our domestic problems, but looking at what does the global economy need, and then we start developing solutions to meet those needs, not just talking about agriculture or oil all the time.
Well, that's what I was going to say. If I'm hearing you right, you're saying that we're actually looking at this problem, we're not looking at this problem properly. We're not looking at the proper solution to the problem that we're in, because the solution is knowledge-based, according to you.
The solution is knowledge-based, but there's still some opportunities for us to also do better when it comes to increasing exports and reducing unnecessary imports. I'll give you an instance. Last year, we exported all our goods, oil plus even non-oil, of 8.8 trillion naira. However, the problem is we imported goods worth 11 trillion naira, giving us a deficit of 2.2 trillion naira. Here's what the problem is. The last time we had a deficit of balance of trade was almost 2 decades ago, 1998. So currently what is happening is we are importing significantly more than we're exporting. Now, what this means is that we've also moved from subsidizing fuel to subsidizing consumption. And we cannot successfully subsidize consumption by importing more than we were exporting.
But the government in the past, banned a number of items from being imported. You said we have, more imports than we're exporting. Is it enough for us to just ban items than for us to prepare, an environment for local industries to be able to produce those items that we have banned?
And that's the right thing. We need to provide that environment for local industries, because history even tells us that we've been banning items since 1963. Has it worked? The answer is no. We need to look at how productive the economy is. And what the economy today shows is we have opportunities to be productive. The government has taken some positive steps, especially with the green policy project on agriculture, to improve our exports. But this effect might not be felt on the economy in the immediate term. What we need to look at is to see how more we want to increase our non-oil trade, because if you look at how much we import in terms of non-oil, which is what you've talked about, non-oil imports alone is 9.3 trillion naira. However, our non-oil exports is only 660 billion naira. Amarachi, here's what it means. It means for every one job we create in Nigeria, we create 14 jobs abroad, because we are importing significantly higher than what we're exporting, at the rate of 14 times what we export in terms of non-oil goods we import. And that is the challenge that we currently have.
Babajide, thank you so much for coming on the News at 10 to explain all of this to us. Appreciate your time. Babajide Ogusonwo, our in-house data and information analyst. Still ahead on the News at 10, our community report tonight looks at the plight of the residents in Makurdi, the Benue State capital, who are facing severe water shortage. We'll have more after the break. Please join us again.